Welcome to the Always Better Than Yesterday podcast. I'm your host, Ryan Hartley. This podcast exists to equip and inspire your heart-centered leadership. Every week, we bring interviews with some of the greatest heart sets and mindsets on the planet. I hope the heartprint of our time spent together is that it creates new possibilities for you and all those you come into contact with. If you'd like to explore what we could make possible for you, then head to abty.co.uk/connect and book in a free 30-minute call to begin our journey together. I just want to express a huge amount of gratitude to our sponsors, Exhale Coffee. I have been a big fan of Exhale Coffee since meeting Alex and the team back in 2022. Exhale is the first coffee to be sourced, roasted and lab tested specifically to maximize its antioxidant and anti-inflammatory potency. An independent lab test has shown that 1 cup of Exhale Coffee has the same antioxidant power as 1.8 kilos of blueberries or 55 oranges. I'm a huge fan, and Mrs. H loves the decaf, especially because she knows that Exhale use the mountain water decaffeination process, which uses only pure glacial water from the highest mountain in Mexico and no nasty chemicals. Simply head to exhalecoffee.com/ABTY for your special offer. And lastly, before I introduce this week's guest, please do subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. It would really help us leave a greater heartprint on this world. On episode 310, what an honour it is to welcome Nick Prefontaine to the podcast. This conversation has echoes of the Against All Odds story that we heard from Austin Hatch on episode 88, where he survived 2 plane crashes. Nick's story begins age 14 when his parents were told that Nick may never walk, talk or even eat on his own again. After a life-threatening snowboarding accident, he fought back against all impossible odds and he won. Not by walking, but by running out of that hospital in less than 90 days of his accident. Nick is now nationally recognised as a motivational speaker and a 3 times best-selling author. Using his S.T.E.P system, he helps others overcome setbacks and achieve their fullest potential. I'm really looking forward to hearing this conversation. It's episode 310 with Nick Prefontaine. Nick, welcome to the Always Better Than Yesterday podcast. How are you, brother?
I am outstanding, Ryan. Looking forward to this.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to our conversation. You know, every now and again I get emails into my inbox and I read people's stories. I'm just like, man, you got a story. You got a story that the world needs to hear. So yeah, maybe just take us back then. Like, Nick, would you be able to share your story with us?
Yeah, so Ryan, my kind of my origin story, if you will, it all starts for me when I was in 8th grade with my friends at ski club, and we had got released a little bit early, and that was always a huge deal when you're growing up. You got released from school a little bit early to head to ski club. So all my friends, all my buddies, and I had all brought our snowboard gear on the bus to get ready, so we wouldn't miss a precious moment once we got to the mountain. And we got to the mountain. The rest of the class migrated inside to get ready, but not us. We were ready to go. So we hit the chairlift right off. So on the ride up the chairlift at the mountain, we noticed that it was very icy because it had been raining earlier in the day. So people were wiping out everywhere. And actually where the chairlift went was right over the terrain park where all of the jumps were. And I knew as soon as I saw it that I had to go off the biggest jump in the terrain park. I mean, there wasn't even a doubt in my mind about, maybe I should be careful today because it was raining early. Like, that was what I was doing. I mean, all the way down I was thinking about what we were going to do after I landed that huge trick. Maybe grab a burger and fries in the lodge, or we could head over to the other chairlift for some runs on those trails. So I got to the top, buckled into my snowboard, took a breath of that crisp winter air, and confidently charged towards that jump with all my speed. And going up to the jump, I caught the edge of my snowboard on the snow going off the jump, and that's the last thing that I remember. Dude, so this is what I learned after the fact. Due to the severity of my injuries, they wanted to bring a helicopter to the mountain to rush me to the hospital, and they couldn't because it was too windy. So they had to send an ambulance in. And out of all the paramedics in the area, there was only one, Ryan, who could intubate on the spot, and I needed that to be able to breathe. And lucky for me that day, he was one of the paramedics that showed up to the mountain that day. So retelling this is always easy for me to remember because it's three things. Three things that all happened that really played into the fact of me being able to be here today with you and your listeners. The second thing, I didn't have a helmet on, so I was told I went off the jump and it landed on my head. Um, went off balance, and the second thing being I didn't have a helmet on when I went off the jump, and the only protection that I had was a pair of goggles.
Right.
So the doctors and the experts, eyewitness accounts and everything, they all told me that the goggles, not only did they brace my initial impact, as I continued to roll down the mountain and continue to hit my head, my goggles moved to cushion each blow between my head and the ice or the mountain at that point. So then the third thing, when I got to the hospital, I was out. I was in a coma in my room in the intensive care unit, unable to communicate with anyone. And the only people that were allowed in there at the time were my parents. So each time the doctors would come into my room to share the not so positive news, not so positive news, not so positive news with my parents, because as I'm sure you're aware and your listeners are aware, whenever you have a traumatic injury or an acute injury, the doctors can't paint a rosy picture. They have to, for liability reasons, give you the worst case scenario. So they started to share this right in front of me to my parents. They figured, oh, he's in his coma. He can't really hear what we're saying.
Wow.
However, my mom stopped them and she said, no, no, not in front of him, because she understood that even though I was in a coma, I was still taking in information. So she made the doctors step outside my room. And once they were there, that's where they shared with my parents that I probably wasn't going to be able to, even if I came out of the coma, I probably wasn't going to be able to walk, talk, or eat on my own ever again. And to my parents' credit, they took the information, thanked the doctors for sharing it with them, and then what this did was just allow me to treat it like any other situation. So none of that got through my mind, whether subconsciously or unconsciously. So to me, it was no different than anything else that I'd faced up to this point. So as soon as I was aware of my surroundings, I ended up being in the coma for 3 weeks. It was a partially induced coma because they had to put me into a coma to wait for the swelling to come down in my brain, because they were worried, Ryan, if I woke up and panicked, if I woke up, I would have panicked. And I already had swelling in my brain, and the swelling would have gone up even more and I would have died. So they had to put me into a coma so the swelling could come down. So I ended up being in the coma for 3 weeks. I really don't remember a month. And it was after a month that I was transported to a rehab hospital in Boston. And that's where I began my journey. So it was right around this time that I started to unknowingly use a system to not only make a full recovery, but run out of the hospital. And that's what I teach to this day, for with my keynotes for brain injury associations and other organizations that support individuals that are going through trauma, and also my one-on-one work with clients. So that's STEP is an acronym. What I can do, if it's okay, is just give like a 10,000 foot view, and then I'll give everyone a way they can download the whole system for free at the end.
Love it. Yeah, love it. Just to phrase it, so how old were you at the time of this injury?
I'm sorry, could you repeat the question? I
How,
was taking my
it's
drinking
okay.
my water.
How old were you at the time of your injury?
I was 14.
14. I have a nearly 13-year-old son, so it's just as a
Oh, so it's hitting home for
it's
you.
here, yeah, really resonate.
Okay.
Oh man, like I can only imagine what your parents went through. So yeah, let's have a listen to and let's tell us about STEP.
Yeah, so STEP is an acronym. It stands for support. So make sure that you have the support of your family and friends right from
Mm,
the beginning. And
yeah.
this is going to have you falling back on relationships that you built prior to your setback.
Mm,
T is trust. So trust that once you take your first step, your next step's always going to be available to you.
mm,
This also starts, and you and I were talking beforehand about this. This also starts with trusting that voice that we all have within inside
mm,
of ourselves. Um, and you have to follow it. So the way that I always like to illustrate this is right around that same time, when I was transported to the rehab hospital in Boston, I could overhear my parents talking with my team of doctors and therapists. And they were saying, okay, what do we need to do to make sure Nick makes a full recovery? I heard in the back of my head, you're going to run out of the hospital.
yeah.
So then
Yeah.
running out of the hospital became, I wasn't able to talk at the time. It was at best a whisper, but I was able to communicate that to the rest of the team. And then running out of the hospital became our common goal. So E is energy. Um, Maintaining your energy allows your body's natural ability to be able to heal itself. And medication has the potential to get in the way of that.
Mm,
So obviously within reason here, that first night in the hospital cost $250,000. So if it wasn't for modern medicine, I wouldn't be here today.
wow.
However, there's a use, a time, and a place for everything. So a month after my accident, when I came out of the ICU, was the time that we needed to allow the body to heal itself. And the best way I can illustrate this, Ryan, is it was around the same time after I'd been transported to the rehab hospital. I was still within, I was pretty mobile, but I was within a week or two of being cleared to, like, officially cleared by the physical therapist for walking on my own. So I wasn't cleared for walking yet. And part of my support, I would always have someone with me. So my mom and her parents would be with me during the day, and my dad would be with me at night. And the nights that he couldn't be there because he was traveling for work, I would have his dad, my grandfather, Bub, I call him, spend the night with me, or one of my uncles spend the night with me.
Mm,
Well, whenever they would stay with me, whether it was my dad, my grandfather, and uncle, they would always sleep in a cot next to the bed.
yeah.
So I woke up and I had to use the bathroom. And because I wasn't cleared to walk, it wasn't like they cleared me to get up. I couldn't just get up on my own. I would have to either get a nurse's attention or get either my dad or an uncle or my grandfather, get their attention to help me to the bathroom because they didn't want me to fall. I never fell, by the way, but
Yeah.
this time I was within a week or two of being cleared to walk on my own, and I woke up and I had to use the bathroom. I leaned over my bed and I called my grandfather Bub. I still call him Bub to this day. So I said Bub, Bub, but I'm just for the show. I'm saying it. You can hear, but it really wasn't that. It was a whisper, if anything. He didn't hear me. So I lowered my hospital bed and managed to make it to the bathroom and then make it back to bed. Nothing happened. However, the hospital found out the next day and they freaked out. And they're like, well, liability, and we can't have this. And here's what we're going to do, we're going to give him this many cc's of this great new medication before bed, and that should calm him down before bed.
Yeah.
And my mom
Yeah.
heard this and she's like, no, you're not.
Wow.
Just tell him not to do that. So I think if I didn't have an advocate there for me,
Mm,
um, they would have just, I know hospitals and doctors and nurses are doing the best they can, but they would have just given me medication and drugs just to make their job easier. Um, so P is persistence. So once you've taken your first step, keep getting up every day and taking your next step, no matter how small. And by continuing to move forward every day, you are building an unstoppable momentum. So if you fast forward less than 60 days later, I realized my goal of running out of the hospital. And after running out of the hospital, it wasn't like my work was done. I had to continue to go to outpatient therapy for the same things, physical, occupational, and speech therapy for another 6 months, along with being tutored all summer long, 5 days a week, in order to continue on to high school with the rest of my classmates.
Wow.
So I mean, looking back on it, Ryan, it's a little surreal to me that only 18 months later, after finishing my rehab from being in a coma and being in my snowboarding accident, I got my start in real estate. And that was door knocking pre-foreclosure doors, or homeowners that have received the notice of default letter from the bank, meaning that they had missed several payments on their loan and the bank still hadn't foreclosed on the house. So, right all throughout my life, really, and still to this day, my dad, I grew up in real estate, family real estate business. My dad was a builder, then a real estate broker, then an investor. And so all throughout my life, he was that. So, right around the time where I was getting my driver's license, him and his team were playing with the idea of having a bird dog, if you will, um, go and knock on doors of these homeowners and see if they could set up meetings for one of their investors to meet with them the following week about potentially buying their home. And right around this time, um, it was not the summer immediately after my accident, but the following summer, I picked up a book off his shelf and I started reading. It was Cash Flow Quadrant by Robert Kawasaki. I started really getting interested in it, and I came to him and I said, "How can I help?" And it was right on this time they were playing with the idea of having someone door knock pre-foreclosure doors. So I I said that's perfect. So I started doing that. So I had just got my license. I legally I couldn't drive with friends or anyone in the car. However, I could still go and knock up to 50 and 70 doors in a day on the weekends. So I would go door to door and knock on their door and see if I could set up meetings for one of my dad's investors to meet with them the following week about buying their house. And it took a mentor pointing this out to me several years ago, saying, "Wait a minute, you were doing this only 18 months after your accident." So I'm sure you can relate to this, and you saying that you have children as well, you have kids as well. So when you're younger, time is compressed. So if you're looking like 6 months, 12 months, 18 months, 24 months, seems like a lifetime away. However, it's not really a lot of time. The older I get, I'm really seeing that it's not really a lot of time. So, um, it only 18 months after finishing my rehab, I was door knocking pre-foreclosure doors, and it took someone pointing that out to me, my mentor, saying that was part of your recovery, going door to door, helping people out of their unfortunate situation. So I did that throughout high school. After high school, after I graduated, I got my real estate license, started working with buyers and sellers. And in 2012, I developed a voice issue. So I have learned through all my I was a realtor at the time, as I mentioned. I got my real estate license, and I learned through my training that one of the things that I could do to kind of increase my like conversion rate and everything was um, you're supposed to chant your scripts before you get on the phone to prospect for new business. So I took this and I was like, oh no, I know what I'm going to do. I'm going to scream through my scripts. So not only is that going to get my energy up, it's really going to reinforce the scripts so I know them in my bones.
Yeah.
I really thought I cracked the code. I found the secret to closing more deals as a realtor. Then doing that throughout 2012, after 6 full months of doing that, um, my voice and my body said no more. Um, because I guess I had actually caused damage to my voice, and towards September, October timeframe, I started really noticing that I was having trouble getting the words out, if that makes sense. And I started looking everywhere for answers. I went to my regular doctor. He checked me out. Everything. Oh yeah, all your vitals are fine. There's nothing wrong with you. But I knew there was something off. Something wasn't right about my voice, and no one could give me a straight answer. I went to like an allergist. I went all these different kinds of doctors, and then I wound up in a voice specialist office in August of 2013. Um, I walked in. There are only 30 or 35 of these specialists in the whole country, and one of them was right in Boston, 2 hour drive away. So I walked into his office, sat down, or I was sitting down. He walked in, heard me speak, and right away nonchalantly goes, "Oh, that? Yeah, we deal with that all the time. We'll get you fixed in no time. Go see the front desk and schedule a Botox injection in a couple weeks." My mouth was like on the floor because I've been stressing out about this, looking for an answer for a year, and no one could tell me what was wrong.
Mm.
So I started receiving in August of 2013, I started receiving Botox injections into my vocal folds along with their higher level voice pathologist, like even higher than just a regular speech therapist, to kind of retrain my throat muscles back to how they were before I developed any issues. And the reason I mention that is even doing that, the time that my voice was probably at its most strained and at its toughest point, I had this voice in the back of my head. And really, it's been there since I got out of high school and entered the workforce, if you will, saying, "Yeah, okay, Nick, great. What you really need to be doing, though, is telling your story from stage and helping trauma survivors or life challenge or health challenge survivors through their challenge and then to be able to thrive with the rest of their lives." So that voice has always been there. And in 2016, I joined my dad. So I was still working as a realtor, but in 2014, at the end of it, he came to me and he wanted to know if I could help him market all of the properties that he was collecting. He was buying non-conventionally as an investor. He was an investor at the time. So some of the ways that we buy, I'm still involved in this family real estate business, Smart Real Estate Coach. So some of the ways that we buy, I'll just give you like a 10,000 foot view on that. And again, at the end, if anyone's interested, I can point them in the right direction. They can go and learn about that. Um, so if the basic way is a lease purchase or a rent to own, basically a delayed cash sale. We won't actually close on the house. However, we'll buy it, take over all responsibility for maintenance, repair, and upkeep over the course of the term. The second is if there is an existing loan, we can actually close on it and have a closing subject to someone's existing financing. And the third, just to keep it real simple and basic, is if there's no debt on the property, we can structure principal only payments, actually close on it and structure principal only payments to the seller. So he was buying all these properties and he was starting to get a backlog of them. And he came to me. He wanted my help putting them on the rent to own market. So different than as a realtor putting them and listing them traditionally, he wanted me to put them on the rent to own market. So
Mm.
what the rent to own market is, there's only roughly 18% of the market out there that can walk into a bank and get a loan. So we go after kind of the larger 82% of the market, 80 or 82% of the market. I'm not saying they're all good in there. However, there's a large portion of in there that they make great incomes, they make great money, they have the money saved for the down payment. They just can't walk into a bank for whatever reason and get a loan today. So we get them into a home with a down payment, of course, and then get them on the path to homeownership, get them connected with credit enhancement, everything like that. So he came to me at the end of 2014 that I needed help putting them on the rental market. I came around to the idea that I could do this right alongside being a realtor. So I started doing that, and over the course of 13 or 14 months, my income shifted with him completely, where I was making the majority of my income with him. So marketing all the rental homes turned into, oh shoot, now I need someone to help me with the buyers and handling and fielding all the buyer calls and inquiries and setting up viewings and meeting with them. So that turned into I was working with those people, and then it didn't even make sense for me to keep my real estate license anymore. So in January of 2016, I let my real estate license go and joined him full time. Now, since 2016, we've been holding events once or twice a year where we have all of our associates that come in from all over the country that we do deals with. We have them come in for a training for several days. And because of that, I've always had the opportunity, Ryan, to tell my story from stage. So I just thought, oh, okay, I'm scratching that itch. I'm listening to that voice in my head, in the back of my head. A little bit. Not really. I was satisfying. It would die down. However, it was always there. And in September of 2019, there was a woman. So whenever I talked, it was maybe 10 minutes here, 15 minutes there, and that was a big deal to me. So in 2019, I had given a talk at our annual event, QLS Live, and someone approached me after, and they said, I'm not trying to steal you from your dad. However, if you're ever looking to kind of fine tune your message and bring it to another level, I can introduce you to a few coaches and mentors that have helped me along the way. Well, I wasn't ready yet, Ryan, because I was still going through the final throes of that voice challenge that I developed in 2012. So my voice sounded really tight, like almost it was hard to get the words out. That's how it sounded. It didn't feel like that, but that's how it sounded. And I wasn't ready yet. However, I always hung on to her card. And then in May of 2021, I finally reached out to her and said, okay, I'm ready. Who do I need to talk to? She introduced me to her mentor, Trisha Brooke, who became my mentor since my initial call with Trisha. So I had an initial call with Trisha. I shared with her what I was looking to do. And I said, do you think that's possible? She said, absolutely. I said, all right, what do you think I should do? She said, the speaker salon. I was like, what's that? So she said, it's you commute to New York City for 6 weeks in a row. And you get to be on stage with up to 10 to 15 other speakers at the Triad Theater in New York City for those 6 weeks in a row. For the first 5 weeks, you work with them. You work with me rather, and get my live direction and feedback on helping you craft a 10 to 15 minute talk. And then, so it's every Wednesday I had to commute to New York City. And then on the 6th week, you get to perform your talk for TEDx organizers, event planners, like podcast hosts, people that are looking for speakers for their stages. And she said, that's $25,000. I just, and this kind of goes with the voice. This is all related, I feel like, because for me it was a wholehearted yes. I didn't have to consult anyone. I didn't like it was that was what I was doing. Yes, okay. So during that, Trisha pitched the idea of what it would look like. So that was the fall of 2021. She pitched the idea of what it would look like to work with her one on one. She said she helps speakers and works with speakers to help them build out their speaker platform. I didn't even know what that was. Like I said before her, I'd maybe done 10 or 15 minutes, and I thought that was a big deal. After working with her, or now that I'm working, well, actually, I'll share that. I'll save that for a little later. So she said that's 75,000. I said I don't have that hiding underneath my mattress. However, give me a week and I'll figure it out. Same thing as before. It was a wholehearted like
Yeah.
I have to do this. So I went and applied for financing, and 6 days later, I wired her the money, and then I started working with her. I am so glad that I did,
Yeah.
uh, because she was the one that helped me start and launch my company, Common Goal. I remember our first call in January of 2022. She said to me, "Okay, so you have this great story. You were in a snowboarding accident. You were in a coma, and then you ran out of the hospital. How'd you do it?" I don't know. I just kept working every day and got up and did the best I can. She goes, "No, not good enough." So she asked me like 6, 7, 8 layers deep to a point where Ryan, I was frustrated with her. I was like, I don't know. Stop asking me.
Yeah.
However, I'm so happy that she did, because now it's 80 to 90% of what I do. That's the step system, by the way. So she pulled the step system out of me, and now I give 50 and 60-minute keynote talks to brain injury associations, and other associations that support individuals that are going through trauma, and also with the one-on-one work that I do with clients, to help them through identify their support, trust, energy, and persistence. Uh, but without saying yes to that, like I said, it was a wholehearted, like I had to do that in my soul. I had to do that. I'm so happy I did, though. Now, since then, I paid that off, and I'm now speaking all over the world right now with that. So, with that, I'll see if you have any questions and step down off my soapbox.
Thank you for sharing your story with us. Thank you for the way that you shared that. And for me, I'm just forgive the depth of this question, but do you ever think like why that day it wasn't the end for you?
I feel like it was for, I mean, it's easy to say now, but I
Yeah.
feel like it was 1,000% for a purpose.
Mm.
Um, because God wouldn't have given me that. Um, if I couldn't, one, if I couldn't handle it, and two, if it wasn't for a greater purpose of being able to help people that are in the throes of their own issues, trauma, life challenge, crisis. So by sharing my story, I don't want to diminish anyone's trauma, because I know there's levels of trauma. I'm just always, since my accident, and this is all throughout my life, but since my accident, I've just naturally gravitated towards people that are in the midst of their own trauma, life challenge, or crisis. And my goal with them is always to help them get through and then thrive with the rest of their lives. So, um, I I just can't be happier what I'm doing
Would
right now.
you have said you had a relationship with God before your accident, or has that been since?
That's actually pretty recent.
Hmm.
That's pretty recent. So I was raised Protestant.
Mm-hmm.
We never really went to church.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe a few times for major holidays or whatever, but didn't really have much of a, wasn't really a central part of my life. And then I went to I actually went to, I've been sharing this more and more. I went to a Catholic all boys high school,
Mm-hmm.
and during that time it was after, almost right after my accident. So I was kind of wrestling with the idea. I remember my first year, because I didn't go there freshman year. I transferred in there sophomore year and then graduated from there. But I remember my first year there kind of sitting and reflecting, Ryan, and thinking, like, why? Like, I was in script, one of the classes I was in was scripture, like 101 or whatever. I forget the name of the course, but I was thinking, well, why would why would God let this happen? Like, what happened to me, my accident and everything. And I kind of wrestled. I never said
Mm-hmm.
I didn't believe. Like, I
Mm-hmm.
never got to that point, but I was always like, maybe at worst agnostic.
Yep.
Like, okay, there's something out there, that kind of thing. It's only been within the past 2 or 3 years that now I'm reading the Bible every day,
Mm.
along with my affirmations, and
Mm-hmm.
like a few different kinds of affirmations. It's just like in addition to meditating and doing qigong in the morning, it's a central part, um kind of, to my life. And I
Mm.
really feel like I don't know, there's just such a comfort um in doing that, I feel like, and kind of deepening my relationship, if that makes
Mm.
sense.
How did you how did you come to the end of the maybe you haven't answered that question, but that question of why did God let that happen? Have you come to peace with that question?
Oh, 1,000%.
Yeah.
Yeah, 1,000%. And that was actually before I've even. It was shortly after that. I mean, it was when
Mm.
I was younger, when I was still in high school. I came to a resolution with that. Yeah, a thousand
Mm.
a thousand percent. Um, just a number of things, and then if I could share this too, so after I had my accident, and then I kind of looking back on it, I'm like, oh, okay, that was just something that happened, and I dealt with it, and I got through it it was a part of when I was growing up. It was a blip. The more and more I share it, thinking like, oh yeah, anyone would do that. People always like, no, not everyone would do that.
Mm.
And I'm like, oh, okay. But then after proof of kind of going through that, and then I was just went on with my life. After I got through my voice challenge that I developed
Mm.
in 2012, I got my last Botox injection in February of 2020. Now it's obviously my voice is fine. There's nothing wrong with my voice. Um, and I'm like, it's behind me. However, I dealt with that for like a full 7, 8 years.
Yeah.
So I think I'm more proud of that than I am my accident. And getting through that, I I was like, all right, I have something here. I have something here that I need to share with the world. So I feel like that, even that, like the voice issue, I feel like that was like that, for lack of a better term, divinely orchestrated, because if it wasn't for that, I don't think I'd be doing this.
Yeah.
Because I was like, after I figured that out, and after I knew like a year plus after getting that final injection, I was like, all right, I have something here. I need to share this with more people, and help more people.
Mm. How do you define yourself? Not necessarily in the business world, not necessarily in the social media world, but to yourself. Like, how do you really? Where do you take your sense of identity from?
So this is a very interesting question. The think my sense of identity, and this is even going back like after I graduated high school, and then I got my real estate license, and it was work, 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 keep charging, do the best you can, that kind of thing. I'm not saying never not do the best you can, like that's always a positive thing to do. However, kind of that nose to the grindstone mentality, and
Mm,
work, 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 hustle, hustle, hustle. Um, that I kind of had that. I've had that really throughout my life, but I had that after I got out of high school, and then I started working and everything. And I think it was kind of this the voice challenge kind of gave me a, like, it was put in front of me because like I could deal with it. One, the second thing was that that's the working and doing deals and closing, 10, 15, 20, and working with buyers, working with stuff, closing deals and everything like that. Like, that's on my identity. And I think that was my identity, probably prior to, if not a few years into, my voice challenge. Where now I realize that my identity is doing what I'm doing today, is helping people through their life challenge, crisis,
mm,
trauma, get through it and thrive with the rest of their lives. That's my identity more than anything that I can do in the business world.
yeah. I've seen from your Facebook post recently you've been really engaging with the Ho'oponopono prayer. How did that really kind of capture your heart, and why does that resonate so much with you?
Because I feel that the whole Ho'oponopono, I feel like that has really, it's been integral, I guess you could say, in getting me to where I am today and doing what I'm doing. So I read, and it's actually funny you asked this question today. The I like to read my journal, for 10 years ago,
Mhm.
and then a year ago. So I always just like to see if there's anything in there that I can learn. And so I don't do it every day, but I do it probably a couple times a month. Like, first to the 15th, look at that window, and then at the end of the month, I'll look the 15th through the 30th. So I was looking today, and 10 years ago, I was saying that I just read, the book Zero Limits for the second time. And that was a book my dad turned me on to.
Mhm.
He said, you got to read this book, Zero Limits, by, Dr. Joe Vitale and, Dr. Hugh Len. Haleakala. I think I got that right. Hugh Len. So, that kind of introduced me to it, and it was all throughout going through the voice challenge that I learned about this, and then doing the clearing and the cleaning, because that's what you learn about, that you just have to do nonstop cleaning and clearing. And what that is, I'm sorry, I love you, please forgive me, thank you. You just keep repeating those four phrases nonstop. And then you act on the inspiration, that you get. You act on what comes through to you. And
Mm.
doing that, um, if anything, it led me to where I am today, with taking this step, with, my speaking, with Common Goal, with working with Trisha. Um,
Mm.
I think I have, yeah, I credit that with, because I don't we're sitting here, Ryan, you and I, we're just two, like, vessels, if that makes sense. So I just want to the reason I want to do this, and the reason I want to clear and clean nonstop, is to just be an instrument this might sound a little outlandish, but just be an instrument for God, um, divine, the universe. That's all life is. And I think everything else is just noise. It just gets in the way of that. And I think all the challenge, like anything, my accident, the voice challenge, like that's all memory. That's all like fear and lack, and that's where that comes from. That those are all learned behaviors. But what I'm doing today is this is powerful.
Yeah.
Helping people.
Yeah. And I think something amazing happens within our spirit to realize that we wouldn't be this powerful if we hadn't have gone through what we've gone through.
1,000%. Yeah, if you ask, it's funny. If you ask me, looking back on my life, would I have gone through what I've gone through? I would say 1,000% because it brought me to where I am today, and being here with you today, even right down to that detail, 1,000%. If you ask my mom that, she said, "Oh no, I wouldn't do it. You don't have to. You wouldn't have to get in your snowboarding accident. What I put them through." So, um, kind of a different perspective. But me going through it, I didn't think it was that big a deal.
Yeah.
But everyone else around me thought it was a big deal.
Yeah. Yeah, I can only imagine. I can only imagine. How do you look upon that 14-year-old version of yourself, so excited on the ski lift, looking down at that? You told that story earlier. How do you look back at that version of you?
It's so funny. Because this has been so I'm not working with her anymore. Probably about 6 months ago, I stopped working with her, but I worked with an energy coach, who I worked with for probably 3 or 4 years, or actually, yeah, 4 years, maybe 4+ years. And I worked with her. Um, it's funny that you said it. So we did like a lot of deep work, like within, like she would lead me through meditations, right down to meditations like when I was on the chairlift, and she brought me back to that moment, and looking at that jump, having that feeling of, yes, 1,000%, that is what I'm doing, is the same exact feeling as when I had the opportunity to work, both do the speaker salon, the first speaker salon, and then while I was doing that, to work with Trisha one-on-one and start Common Goal and the STEP system and launch my business and everything. It was the same thing. Yeah, I'm doing that. 1,000% I'm doing that. Um, so it's the same feeling. So I'm still that person. I think I've grown and evolved, and got better. I like to think that, at least.
Yeah.
Same person though. Same spirit, same soul.
Yeah. I've really enjoyed our conversation. Nick, who should get in contact with you if they feel compelled to have a conversation?
So, all right. So the real estate aspect. I know I shared a little bit about how we buy and sell homes, without using any of our money or getting bank loans or anything like that, and then sell to a rent-to-own buyer. Um, that was only like a 10,000 foot view. If you're interested in any aspect of the real estate, part of my story, you can head to smartrealestatecoach.com/masters class and get registered for the masters class. That's going to teach you all about how we buy and sell on terms. And then if at the end, it's still of interest to you and you want to learn more, you'll be able to take that step. Then, believe it or not, anything about my story and the STEP system, is really only a 10,000 foot view of the STEP system. And to download the entire STEP system for free, you can go to nickprefontaine.com/step. And that's going to teach you all about support, trust, energy, and persistence. And then finally, especially if you're out there and you're kind of stuck and you don't know what to do, whether it was you just suffered some accident, some traumatic or health challenge, and you don't know what to do. This is downloading the STEP system is a great first step, because what we find is once you take your first step, your next step's always going to be available to you.
I'll make sure that all your links are in the show notes so that people can contact you. I have a word here at Always Better Than Yesterday, and that word is called heartprint. And the word symbolizes the ripple effect that we have in other people's lives and the possibilities that we create. That 1 degree of change, that 1 degree of difference where all of a sudden life is never the same again. Nick, I'd love for you to reflect or maybe pre-flect what you hope your heartprint will be.
So I've been asked a version of this question before. What I want to leave upon people's souls or leave upon people's hearts after I'm gone is not the amount of things that I'm able to accumulate, and even down to anything. So not the things I'm able to accumulate. I would say how many people I have helped. How many people I have helped to get through their challenge and thrive with the rest of their lives. That's the heartprint that I want to make sure that I leave. And doing what I'm doing is accomplishing that goal. I think before I started this journey, there was always this kind of this angst, I guess you could call it. I don't want to say anxiety. I think that term's overused, but like kind of a knot in my soul, whereas like, all right, you're not really, and I feel like I'm it's unwound, if you will.
Nick, an honor to share time and space with you. Thank you so much. I'll make sure all your links are in the show notes, and we'll be honored if you'd leave us a final thought from your good self.
So whatever you're dealing with, anyone out there, whatever you're dealing with, whether it's a health challenge, trauma, crisis, or even starting a new business, going through financial issues, you're going to get through it. And the only way you're going to get through it is if you keep moving forward. So just keep taking that next step.
Nick, appreciate you, brother.
Thank you, Ryan. This has been a blast.
Hey, my friends, thank you for making it to the end. I hope that our time spent together today has left you a little bit better than before you push play. I'd really appreciate if you just took a moment to leave a review to allow me to meet more people where they are and hopefully leave them a little bit better too. If you're curious to know how I, through Always Better Than Yesterday, can serve you, your team, your organisation, then head to alwaysbetterthanyesterday.com to connect. And while you're there, let me know 1 or 2 things that you're going to do as a result of listening to this conversation. I absolutely love hearing your thoughts, your reflections, and the things that this spark in your own heart and mind. If you want more insights from my heart and mind, I do send out short episodes on a Monday, Tuesday, Thursday and Friday, and again, I hope that they serve you well. I appreciate you listening. I'm Ryan Hartley, host of the Always Better Than Yesterday podcast, a podcast for heart-centered leaders just like you. Keep leading, my friends. Always love.